It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. The show is brought to you by Audible.com. You go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You go there, you sign up for free, get a free audio book. Tonight we are live on TalkStreamLive.com. PSN Radio, which we're having a little trouble connecting, but we should get a hold of them before the end of the show. PSN Radio, Wolf Spirit Radio, TalkSuperstation.com, AwakeRadio.us, AwakeRadio.uk, 1800 Online, ShizazRadio.com, and Just Us Radio Network, Weebly.com. Okay, then we're replayed throughout the week on ParaX Radio Saturday night, 7 p.m., Penny Entertainment on Blog Talk Radio Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Then throughout the week on Firehorse Radio Wednesday nights. We just added Late Night in the Midlands on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Okay, and to show your support over there at the Late Night at the Midlands. High Point Radio, both on AM and FM, covering New Jersey and a bit of New York and Pennsylvania. And coming soon, Cave Radio Broadcasting. They're going to have us on twice a week. Northern Lights Radio. They're going to have us on live Friday nights as a simulcast. And these really cool guys. Not that the rest aren't cool, but these guys are cool. FPRNradio.com. Okay, and these are the guys that are hooked up with those Max Resistance Roundtable guys that had me on that podcast about a week and a half ago. And I tell you, really a bunch of cool guys, and we've been hanging out on Facebook and stuff ever since. Really cool. Tonight we have Kris Millegan, and he's the publisher over at TrineDay. The website is TrineDay.com, and he's the country's leading publisher of suppressed works. Okay, now go to TrineDay.com right now while I'm doing the intro and check out all the books that they got, because it's just the kind of stuff that all this audience is interested in checking out. Now, he's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. Don't forget, okay, this is a listener-sponsored show. We need your donations to keep going. OppermanReport@gmail.com. We have to make some moves here, okay? So what we're going to be doing in the future is we're going to be doing some recorded content that we're going to be putting up on, iTunes, trying to make some money to keep all this going. So we're going to have some I'm doing a new recorded interview this Wednesday, as a matter of fact, with one of these guys from TrineDay.com. Daniel, I don't know his last name, but we're going to be talking about the Bilderbergers. Mr. Milligan will tell us what his name is when I bring him on in a second. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, by the way, we're live on PSN. Welcome, PSN. It's good to hear from you. Okay. Now, the other thing, too, is please go to the YouTube channel, Opperman Report YouTube channel, and subscribe to the channel, okay? Because if we can get 10,000 people to sign up, okay, because the views are growing every day, we can get YouTube to pay for all this, and we don't have to do iTunes and paid podcasts and all that kind of stuff. We could just let Google pay for our bills. Okay, but tonight we have with us a fascinating guy. I've been watching all this stuff all day long, and I'm really a brilliant guy, as a matter of fact, like a historian. Kris Millegan from TrineDay.com, the publishing company, and his book is Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. So, Kris, are you there?
Absolutely, sir. How you doing?
Very good, man, and thank you for coming on. I got to tell you, like I said over and over, I've been watching you all day long, and especially this one.
I knew there was somebody there. No,
I don't. You know how it is. I feel like I know you. You know, but really cool guy. You know, and also too, when you some of this historical stuff you talk about, you're like a real historian. You know.
Well, I've been a precocious reader all my life, and started reading before I went to school, and I always just liked to read, and I like history. And then my daddy told me some stuff I didn't understand, and didn't, really made me scratch my head many years ago, and so I started to read a lot.
Right, because you were saying that you found out your dad was CIA.
Right. Well, I knew he was CIA, but not because he had told me, but because I had an older brother and an older sister, and we would talk among ourselves, and we had been overseas and stuff like this, and so, and we'd lived in, I'd been born in D.C., and we were living outside there in Fairfax and Virginia, and so there was something going on. But it was, he when he first came out and talked about it was it was the day before my 20th birthday, and he had a professor from Vanderbilt, a Dr. D.F. Fleming, and sometime before that he'd asked me a question. He'd asked me what I'd thought of the Vietnam War, and I gave him I was a teenager at the time. I gave him a flip answer. I says, well, and I'd been raised on World War II and John Wayne, and I says, well, you have a sack of hand grenades and some rice patties, and you go throw the hand grenades and win it for the good guys wearing the white hats. Just a flip little answer. And my dad said we had to have a talk, and then the day before my 20th birthday, he said, well, it was time for this talk. And he took me in my little brother's room and sat me down and looked at me and said, well, the Vietnam War is about drugs. There's these secret societies. And then he said, and then he said, and communism's all a sham. There's these same secret societies behind it all. And when he first said the drugs and stuff, I'm thinking secret societies. I'm thinking, okay, he's talking about the mafia, and then he says the thing about communism and the secret societies, and I'm thinking, well, my dad's nuts. I don't understand any of this, and then this little light comes on my head because it's the late '60s. This is 1969, and I'm thinking, okay, this is the drug talk. He's gonna tell me to stop because I'm growing my hair long, I'm smoking some pot, and he hadn't had the other talk with me because I had a 6-month-old kid and was married.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there in the chair and I'm thinking, okay, Dad's gonna say, don't stop smoking pot, and so I'm sitting up and I'm getting ready to say yes, sir, and all this kind of stuff, and he doesn't. He goes and starts telling me about his intelligence career, about him starting working with people out of the State Department in the 30s when he'd been an exchange student to China, and then he was in the COI and then OSS, and then he was in CIA, and then we'd gone, as a little kid, we'd gone to Southeast Asia, and he had been working with him, and then he said there was this thing that happened. He'd gone to Vietnam, and then he started telling me that they were playing out a loose scenario in Vietnam, and this didn't make any sense to me, and then they started talking about psychological warfare and propaganda and sway pieces and stuff, and all of this didn't make any sense, and it soon became very apparent that, they could tell me I had no idea. I had no frame of reference. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Well, let me ask you this. Now around that time, did he ever try and persuade you into following in his footsteps?
No, he was rather disgusted with what had happened.
Okay.
He had moved the family all the way the other side of the country, and he wasn't happy with what he had seen and what he knew about. And I mean, and then we had some arguments and some some other discussions, because I continued to smoke a little pot. I have to admit, I was putting on,
Sure.
I had a record store, and I was putting on rock and roll dances, and it was an interesting time. And this one time he told me, he says, why are all you kids doing all this? He says, they're out to opiate your whole generation. And I mean, this is something that I could never forget, because it was the first time I'd ever heard the word opiate. Okay, I mean, I knew what the word meant, but I had never heard it before. And I told him, I said, well, I didn't really care about that. I smoked a little pot and stuff, and so, and I remember when I had said that, he turned around and he says, well, you're just making money for them. And the way he said them, the way he spat it out with his vitriol, I mean, and we were outside in our driveway, and I mean, it's just, I can't forget it. So, I kind of, went on my life, but at this time, the girly magazines, Gallery, Playboy, Penthouse, and there was a whole bunch of other ones, a lot of they had a lot of good articles in them, too. And they were talking about the Kennedy assassination, and also they were talking about the subject which my dad was talking about, which I call CIA drugs. Okay? And so, I was reading it in one of these about it was actually about the Kennedy assassination, and somebody in there, they were talking about, they were listing a whole bunch of different theories that were out there and saying the different groups, and then there was a little like throwaway line that said, somebody said, well, there's some people that talk about the involvement of secret societies, and that brought back, my dad's conversation a lot and all of this stuff, and I really started to really delve deep into it and look at it.
What year was that?
That was about 1971, 71, 72, something like that.
Okay.
And because at the same time I went out and I was telling somebody about, what my dad told me, and they looked at me and they says, well, you're a conspiracy theorist. And I kind of scratched my head and I say, well, what's a conspiracy theorist, And so I had taken on, in college, I'd taken on some independent study, and so then I took on conspiracy theory as an independent study, and which was very, very interesting because it covers a lot of disciplines, and you learn a lot. And one of the basic things I did, being a book person, I went to all the bookstores I could find and libraries, and I went to all the books. I said, okay, take me to your conspiracy section. And after a while, I found out, all of them had at least one or maybe two books, okay? And after a while, I'd look at these books and I'd say, well, gosh, these are kind of like formula books because, I can find you a book that blames it all on the Jews. I can find you a book that blames it all on the Catholics. I can find you a book that blames it all on the Masons. I can find you a book that blames it all on the hippies. I can find you a book that blames it all on the social Darwin. All kinds of different things, okay? And so, because... And one thing that I finally came across the book by Anthony Sutton, America's Secret Establishment, an introduction to the Order of Skull and Bones in 1988. And that finally helped me make some sense of some of the stuff my dad had said, because I could find some stuff about the drug stuff and all this and different things and the thing about, communism is all a sham. These same secret societies are behind it all. It's all a big game. The teachers were stuffing me underneath the desk because the Ruskies were going to bomb us, I had a hard time wrapping my head around any such kind of notion.
Right.
And so I finally I come across Anthony Sutton's work and amazing studies that the gentleman did, and I started to make some sense of it. And at this time, my dad was full on with Parkinson's and was soon to die from pancreatic cancer, and so I didn't really get to question him. But when I went through went through his papers, it was very, very enlightening. Even though a couple days after he died, two young gentlemen showed up at Mom's at the doorstep and say, "Oh, hey, we'd like to go through your husband's papers."
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you still have those papers. Okay, that was my first question.
She let them in, and they went through them, you know. But still, there was some interesting ones, and I found some other interesting stray things, you know, that. The biggest thing was I at that point in time I was really into researching CIA drugs and stuff, and I was real interested about the city of Chiang Mai, and because Chiang Mai is the second largest city in Thailand, and it's basically a heroin city. All the banks have branches there, and there's a 4-lane highway up to the Golden Triangle. And I'd been told in my lifetime it'd been a small village. Well, I was having trouble finding out information about it. And so after my dad dies, I'm going through his papers, and I see, oh gosh, my dad had been in Chiang Mai in '56, and because see, they told us that my dad was, I was a little shaver, and I really wasn't shaving, but they told us kids that he was gonna go write a book, which he never wrote, and went off to Southeast Asia for 3 to 6 months. I'd have to go look at it, but he was there for some time, and I was looking at his itinerary, and he'd been in Chiang Mai, so I can say, well, gosh, I can ask my mom. So the next time I see my mom, I go say, hey, Mom, how big was Chiang Mai when you guys were there in '56? And she says, well, it wasn't very big. Biggest thing in town was the church. I got pictures of it. So I'm reaching up to grab, getting a picture book to look at the pictures, and my mom said, and that's when I stopped believing everything I read in the newspapers. And that really perked up my ears, because my mom, she was a very good CIA wife. I mean, I'd ask her questions, and she didn't know anything, and she wouldn't tell me anything. And so I says, well, gee, Mom, what do you mean? And so she says, well, we were in Vietnam in this place, and then we went to Thailand. The next day we went to Bangkok, and then to Chiang Mai, and the big story in the Thailand newspaper was about this big battle right where we had been. And she said there was no battle, we were having a picnic. So I turned back the picture book, and I look at him. Pretty soon I find my dad there with this gentleman by the name of Ed Lansdale, who's rather notorious in conspiracy theory literature and conspiracy literature about certain things. And a guy like Ozzie North considered himself Landalized. And so he would do fake battles and stuff like that. It's on the written record in the Philippines. And so there's a picture of my dad and Lansdale talking, and then there's another page, and there's a picture of my mother, and it's just a beautiful picture of my mother. I end up showing it to my siblings, and when my mother passes, it gets used at her memorial, because she's very vivacious in it. And in that picture, you can see Colonel Lansdale sitting down. There's these guys, and they're obviously having a picnic, and they're a bunch of guys in fatigues and berets and different things walking around and whatnot. And the caption that my mother writes it says Eudora because that's her name. Eudora out from Saigon with Colonel Lansdale and North Vietnamese military leaders. Okay. So, and if you read Colonel Prouty, he talks about Lansdale having fake battles in Vietnam too. But see, so why do you have fake battles? Okay, you have a picnic and you tell the world you're having a battle. Why do you do that? You know, and so people can choose sides. Okay, because then you harden the sides, and pretty soon you take American boys and girls and you send them to hell for only 1 year, though. And if those boys and girls survive hell for 1 year, they get to go back home and do whatever it is that they were doing before and see their sweetie and all that kind of good stuff. Well, we know, from basic, at least 20% of those boys and girls got addicted to the heroin. And it's, addiction doesn't really have to do completely with just a substance. It really has to do with how a person is treated and whatnot, because if you put rats and you have a community there, they don't get as addicted as much if you just put a rat in a cage with a bottle with the stuff, okay? And so a small percentage of those came back and, still stayed addicted, okay? And help foment a thing where they were trying to opiate our whole boomer generation. And this has to do, come to find out in my research looking at it, has to do with we as a culture, country, people, a one unital value, all of us together, okay? Far outseed, anybody's quote-unquote conspiratorial control, okay? And there is a secret society, okay? And how they try and run the world is a leviathan of 3 levels and 3 parts to each level. Top level is mining, metal, and money. And if you think about it, it makes sense. And when I look at like Skull and Bones, that they're who they are, there's only 2,600 people have ever been Skull and Bones, and so you can look and see who they are and what they've done, and so you see a preponderance of these mining things, and it all makes sense. And then you have drugs, guns, and oil, and where they use the theater of war, and where the rubber hits the road is media, movies / music. They really got to control those cultural elements, and then quote unquote magic. Okay, the ability to hoodwink us, for us to think that something else is going on, and their preponderance on using ritual, mass trauma to scare the heck out of us, to control us. But these units of we aren't on all of us together. We aren't on a death trip. We're we're more into rejoice and be fruitful and multiply. Okay, and so I mean.
Well, Christo, but because we're coming up to a break, but now you're saying that what they do is that they stage these so-called battles overseas to lure our armies over there. They put these young men through trauma, get them addicted to drugs, and also, too, the army's there in order to smuggle the drugs back into the United States. They're also facilitating that as well. And then they've created, when these kids come back to the United States, they've created their own market for the drugs as well.
Right. But you had some sticky wickets that happened because it's it's a generational politic thing, because the first self-correcting device that we have as a unital device is the dialectic, and that can be manipulated rather easily, because by controlling the extremes you control the middle, okay, where the cycle of generations is a little bit long drawn out, but there's a great book called Generations, A History of America's Future, okay. and they show how there was a generation that didn't cohere in the 1860s. And that was because of assassination, war, presidential assassination, war, and opium. They tried to do it again because it's a controlling device. And because of, one of a better term, there's more moving parts in the cycle of generations. There's more intelligence. We jumped aside, created counterculture that survived because of some of the things that happened in the 1860s. And then out of that counterculture came the personal computer and the internet, and those are the tools that we're using to fight the corruption, because that's all it is. It's people lying, cheating, and stealing at us. Okay? And all we have to do is stand up, because they're using this psychological warfare.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. I heard you earlier today, right? And you were kind of saying like, hey, we can vote these rascals out, and like you're still hopeful that we can overturn this?
Yes, absolutely. 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 Absolutely.
I agree with you. We have to resist, and we have to keep fighting. We can't give up. But if you're telling me right now that this goes back to the 1800s and it's cyclical, yeah, dude, what do we do?
We stand up. All we really have to do is stand up, because, see, what they've created is virtual control, okay? And that biggest control that they've created is through that media. Okay, yeah. I mean, that's how come you only got 6 companies that do it. That's how come you got, me out here in Oregon, publishing books. Okay,
yeah, publishing with the most interesting books on the most interesting topics. You know what I mean? And who's doing it? Some guy practically in a barn. I saw some pictures of you, doing it out in the middle of nowhere in some rural Oregon place.
Right.
And this is the stuff that people want to hear.
Right, and see, and that's because of the personal computer, because that allows me to do that, and the internet allows me to network and to tell people about it, and then it's allowing us to do this radio show, and I mean the creativity that the personal computer, I mean, if you wrote to another person, 20 years ago. It was dwindling. It kept dwindling, the people that were sitting down and scratching on a piece of paper. But then all of a sudden we got these keyboards, and and people sit there, and and this is creativity, and this creativity surpasses the sophistry that these secret societies keep trying to put. And so we have more and more people that aren't buying, what these guys are trying to sell to us. And
okay, Kris, we got a break. We got a hard break. Okay. But here with Kris Millegan, the publisher at TrineDay, TrineDay.com. He's the country's leading publisher of suppressed books. He's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. We'll be right back after these messages. If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic-grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website, posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocotami, that's Jocatami, @yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Our Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Ray at infinityhomeplans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's infinityhomeplans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, and you just Google New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters, and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on Lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book, where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them, too, as well, if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico, from these women. Okay, and we are back with the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Tonight our guest is Kris Millegan. He's the publisher at TrineDay Publishing, TrineDay.com. Go there and check out the books. He's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. We have a couple of his authors coming on. What's his name? Daniel what?
Estulin. Daniel Estulin.
What's the name of his book?
True story, The Bilderberg Octopus Deception. Let's see, Shadow Masters, the Transevolution is his latest one, and then we've got a new one of his coming out about Tavistock.
Okay, excellent. And I'm doing an interview with him Wednesday afternoon. We're recording it, and it's going to be a special broadcast that we're going to put into circulation in all the stations. Also, we have coming up Nick Bryant from Confessions of a D.C. Madam and the Franklin Scandal. We have him coming up as well in a couple of weeks. March 13th, I think it is, or March 27th. Yeah, 27th, I think it is.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. Nick is an amazing reporter. He's a freelance reporter in Manhattan for over 20 years.
Right.
He was with a major literary agency there. Got put onto a story through an assignment through Rolling Stone. Brought it back. Rolling Stone wouldn't print it. He wrote a magazine article. Nobody would print it. He wrote a book. Nobody would publish it. I become friends with him. I said, well, remember me over here. And he said he knew everybody in New York. This book was coming out from New York. Okay, finally, after, beating his head against the wall there for a couple of years, he finally called me up and we put out the Franklin Scandal. And an amazing tale of how, pragmatically things operate in this country, and it has to do with blackmail. They were taking kids and flying them around the country. One of the main places was to Washington, D.C., to a house that the owner boasted it was full of blackmail stuff.
Yeah, they were flying them out of Boys Town in Nebraska.
Yeah, they wanted colored folk with difference that wouldn't be uppity at these high-toned gatherings. Okay, I mean, we got a call from a law firm from a southern state, and he says, well, we've got 200 kids here under deposition. Here they aren't flying them around. They're driving them around in pickup trucks, and they're using them to blackmail state, police, judges, and local politicians. So it's a the world doesn't work the way we'd like it to, and a lot of times, I hate to admit it, but the old saw, like Pogo said, a lot of times the enemy is us, and
right.
if you go to any local political meeting, there's very, very few people at these political meetings, and we've got a problem when we look at our Constitution. When our Constitution was made, okay, there was supposed to be one representative to 30,000 people, okay, and we've got way beyond that. But, that would be a much better situation in Washington, D.C. if there was a lot more people back there, so then they couldn't be corralled by the quote-unquote special interests and stuff. But to get back to what I was talking about before is the basic dynamic, this generational conflict, and they were looking to take out a generation because, again, when this had been done in the 1860s, you had a situation where, if we look at our history, okay, we can see a situation where through yellow journalism, okay, and a false flag event, the USS Maine, our country was taken to war, okay. And there's a very interesting side story about that, about Mr. Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was under Secretary of Navy. Okay, Secretary of Navy had the gout. And Secretary of Navy went home early one day, and Teddy stepped up to the desk and set off a bunch of missives, and the Secretary of Navy came back and said, Teddy, what did you do? And he never went home early again. Okay. And you can see the Roosevelts were heavily involved with the opium business, okay?
Right.
Because the Roosevelts were ship owners, ship captains, and Warren Delano, was a chief factor for Russell and Company, which was the third largest opium smuggler in the world, the largest opium smuggler in America, which was the company which the founder of Skull and Bones was William Huntington Russell, the colonel, and that was the family company. And so they in the Spanish American War, we didn't go as soon as war was declared, and they, the Maine blew up when there's a admiral that did a study that showed, well, gosh, there wasn't a bomb that was on the outside. It looks like it blew up from the inside out. But we didn't go to Cuba right away, but we took the Philippines right away, because the Philippines is very important to the opium smugglers, because Manila is the oldest western port in the Far East. And you have a situation where after the Second Opium War, okay, opium became legal. And it took a little while, but you can watch where when it was illegal, the Skull and Bones families, people, companies, owned 85% of the emerging steel infrastructure in the Far East. We're talking steamship lines and railroads. when opium became legal, all of a sudden that ownership, starts to decrease and decrease and decrease till they finally sold it off to some German buddies. Okay, and so because it took a little while for the Chinese to figure out, wait a minute, we don't need you smugglers anymore. I can just call up India and say, hey, send me a boatload, and pay the duties. And so you had a situation where Arthur MacArthur was sent over to the Philippines as the first military governor. They fought a horrendous war, declared it over before it was over, sent over the first civilian governor, William Howard Taft, who was the son of one of the other founder of Skull and Bones, Alfonso Taft, and is the only man to be both president of the United States and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, as an member of the Order of Skull and Bones, and they sent him over as the first civilian governor. Well, McKinley asked Taft twice to be on the Supreme Court, which is a lifetime appointment. And Taft had been a judge before. He was a big man. He looked good in black robes, but he turned him down. And after McKinley was shot, and Roosevelt was president, and Roosevelt asked him to be Secretary of War, and William Howard Taft said, okay, I'll be Secretary of War, and came back from the Philippines. If you look at the historical record, one of the things that William Howard Taft had done was to make opium illegal for the first time in modern history. And so you have need of smuggling some more. And then William Howard Taft started the Shanghai and the Hague Conventions, which has led to the prohibitions that we have today. And the prohibitions have nothing to do with our health. They have nothing to do with our community. They have nothing to do with our children. They have to do with keeping in place a black market that allows forces in the shadows to sell plants most of the time for more than gold. And some of these plants can be grown 3 times a year. And it gets
well, let me ask you a question, because you're watching all this and you've been studying this for years and years. What do you think about what is the legalization of marijuana in Colorado and stuff? Like, what's the agenda there?
Well, it's a problem to them. You see, basically at one time for little shorthand English here. Well, let's say the hippies took marijuana away from the man. Okay, the man's been trying to get it back ever since. Okay, we've got a book out there called 15-Ounce Pound by Joseph Pietri, which really gets into it, and it only came about because there's this other gentleman that patented a method for getting the best medicine out of marijuana, and so there's been some very interesting things. And while we were putting that book together, the author got a email from a gentleman who said, "Hey, I know something about your book that's coming out, blah blah blah," and so I talked to the gentleman, and he was a licensed medical grower in a state. There's quite a few states that have that, and he had a uncle who was a member of a 3-letter agency, and they were at a family meeting. And a family get together, and there was some alcohol flowing, and the uncle started telling the licensed growers, says, "Hey, you aren't going to be able to grow that after a while." And I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, he'd just been at this meeting in Chicago, where there'd been all the big pharma, big tobacco, big oil, FDA, IRS, DEA, all these big mucky mucks, and the governor of Michigan was there, and and they had agreed upon this plan how all these guys were going to take over medical marijuana, the marijuana scene, within the next 5 to 10 years." And some of this, it also goes back to a side story, and we don't have time to talk about, but the University of Mississippi. But and so, I tried to confirm this meeting as much as I could, but they said, the guy said in this meeting that the test cases were going to be Michigan and Connecticut. So I looked at Michigan and Connecticut, and Michigan, the governor of Michigan had just signed a law that they created the first ever legal term of medical grade cannabis. Okay, and this medical grade cannabis only meets the certain criterion that these certain people that have been patenting pot, okay, that have had DEA shielding, okay. So it's a real long story, but we've got statements from like state representatives that, yeah, it's time to get this out of people's kitchens and yards and into the pharmaceutical companies, and basically you would have to buy it at a pharmacy in Michigan, okay, and they have a medical thing there now, and a person, as long as they exercise, they could use it, but as soon as they started to buy at a pharmacy, they would lose the right to grow it themselves, and they would just have to buy it at the pharmacy. And then amazing. We looked at Connecticut, and what Connecticut has done is, in the Connecticut thing, they made the rule that if you have a dispensary, you have to have a pharmacist on site. There all the time. So they're trying to make some medical stuff, but there's a lot of stuff out of the bottle. I mean, there's an old saw. It's hard to put the genie back in.
Right.
And I mean, they keep up this pretense of, well, it has no medical value, so it's Schedule 1. It's Schedule, which is a huge big lie, right? I mean, so they're basing all of their actions on this huge big lie, and and if a person stands up to them, I myself have been an activist for years, and if you stand up to them, they basically will not convict you of possession because they have no authority to do that, and just let you go because they don't want to even talk about it, okay? Because the whole thing is done under color of law. Because I think about that. I mean, is there anything in the Constitution that gives these people the power over a plant that comes from God?
Yeah, and for them to say that the plant you grow in your backyard is unhealthy, but the one that they can sell you from the pharmacy is healthy, is it's contrary to every kind of what are those side effects that they have on every pill that they sell from the pharmacy. Some of those side effects include suicide.
Right. Well, allopathic medicine, again, it's part and parcel of the secret societal control mechanism. Remember, right. I talked about in the middle drugs, guns, and oil, and basically that comes under oil, okay? Because, see, it was a gentleman from Skull and Bones, Dr. Benjamin Silliman Jr., in 1855, who took rock oil, petroleum, okay, and made gasoline and paraffin for the first time, okay? He wrote a report, and he said, gee, gentlemen, I think with some very inexpensive processes, you have some very valuable products. And as soon as he wrote that report, the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company of New York passed into hands of investors at New Haven, Connecticut, where Skull and Bones is based, okay? And the Bissells, who had started the Pennsylvania Rock Oil Company of New York, and the Townsends, who the Bissells had gone to financing for, so, excuse me, soon had their very sons at the Order of Skull and Bones in Yale. And you have a Rockefeller there, and you see this secret society proceeded to monopolize everything around oil, including medicine. And the patents for the internal combustion engine go back to the 1844, if you read the history of allopathic medicine, you find that Rockefeller basically bought and paid for the system that we have today, which is based on the quote-unquote heroic system, which, including, drilling holes in your head and doing all kinds of bleeding and doing all that kind of stuff. And there was a real fight in the late 1800s and the early 1900s about medicine, but Rockefeller went around with a checkbook and basically bought the system that we have today. And it's the stuff that is done in their name is criminal. I mean, there's a story like Rudolf Diesel. If you read about Rudolf Diesel, he says stuff. He says, I'm doing this because I have a social consciousness. I do not want the small industrialist and the farmer to be holding to this monopoly. And so he presented his engine, the diesel engine, at the Paris exhibition of 1900, ran it 24/7 on nothing but peanut oil. Okay? Anything that you can squish between two rocks. Okay? So, I mean, some years later, they were hounding his money, hounding his patent, and this guy in England said, hey, Rudolph, I'll help you. And so Rudolph got in a boat, and everybody woke up in the morning, and Rudolph had jumped overboard, and, his engine got refitted to run on petrochemicals because, all this biodiesel and stuff is how that engine ran originally. I mean, the only reason we go to the oil store is because these guys own it. And there's a parallel with what these folks are doing here and what was done in Nazi Germany. The Skull and Bones is a Germanic secret society. And in Germany, you had secret societies that were like the Thule Society that Hitler was a member of, that was political and similar to Skull and Bones, and intelligence-based. You had a secret society that's based on science, okay? And at Yale University, you have a society such as that. It's called Berzelius. And you have people that are a member of that who are also a member of Skull and Bones and Scroll and Key and other secret society, but it's all about science. And it's on a very geomagical positioning there at Yale University on a straight line to the original lab of Whitney Labs, where he was doing the first arms, and because this is about war and about getting us in debt and just doing bad things in our country's name. And it's our founding fathers were amazing people, very well educated. One of the last fully generation that was fully classically trained, and because you have Johann Wolfgang Fichte in his third address to the German people saying, we're going to take your children and we're going to teach them what and how and when to think. And this is the Prussian education system. And this is the education system that most of us have been subjected to. They found that if they took the classical education, they didn't teach you a bunch of it. They didn't teach you rhetoric. They didn't teach you dialectic. They didn't teach you dialogue. They didn't teach you logic so that you could stand on your own 2 feet and not be manipulated. Okay, but they found that they took the subjects, taught them for about an hour, put bells in between. I mean, sound familiar? They could then put a false construct around this. I mean, I come from a family of teachers and, school superintendent. I mean, I didn't, I mean, and if you look at the school test from the 1880s, most college people couldn't pass that today because we have been dumbed down immensely. Okay. And then you see they had a target date of 1950, okay, to attack the boomer generation. Okay, they needed 3 things there. They needed the nascent drug culture, They needed the modern education system, which you can look at the historical record. It was brought to us quite openly through a big Masonic program. And not every, very few Masons are bad and evil people. Most Masons are good and honest people. And then you have television. Okay, because television, especially here in the United States, okay, wherever NTSCS is, which is North America and Japan, okay, runs at 60 cycles per second. It's a technological means of mind control. You read any book about hypnosis, it'll tell you that 60 cycles puts you into a trance. It starts alpha waves. It makes you, it makes the brain, trick the body so that it's sitting in front of that tube, because that's what it likes. Okay.
Now, is that true with the new digital TVs as well?
I'm sure there was something there. They moved more into light variations, which are beyond our perceptive thing. So I don't know technically, but I do know that there is still some 60 cycle residue on the new screens. Yes.
Yeah, the way you could tell is if you film it with a video camera, you'll see it flickering. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so someone should test it out and see what happens with the digital cameras as well today. Okay, so we're coming up to another break over here with my man. Fascinating information, my friend. We're here with Kris Millegan. He's the publisher at TrineDay.com, which has all these kinds of books. He's also press books. These are all the books that my audience, I know you guys love these kind of books, so definitely go there and check it out. He's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society, and also a fascinating historian as well. Now, by the way, I just want to give a couple of plugs here to Patty Walking Turtle, one of my producers. Her show is on Saturdays on Awake Radio Network at 3 p.m. Central Time, Where the Wild Things Grow with host Patty Walking Turtle, and Mondays at 4 p.m. Central Time on Turtle Talk with co-host Barbara Treecrow. I never heard of Barbara before. Three Crow. Sorry about that. So that'll be great. And we'll be right back after these messages with more of Kris Millegan. If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic-grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocko-Tammy, that's J-O-C-A-T-A-M-I, at yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Her Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Gray at InfinityHomePlans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's InfinityHomePlans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, and just Google New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters, and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on Lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them, too, as well, if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico from these women. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. The show is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. Sign up for free, get a free audiobook. Our guest tonight is Kris
Millegan.
I know what your name is, man. Kris Millegan. I'm getting old, Kris. Okay. Kris Millegan, at the publisher at TrineDay. TrineDay.com, the country's leading publisher of suppressed works. And he's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. Okay, Kris, you've been around a long time.
Well, you know, I'm 65, and I've seen this country, you know, when our coins didn't have slugs in the middle of them. It's pretty darn amazing, you know. I mean, you know, our, you know, out there respectively, your grandparent or your great grandparent, you know, would thump you on the top of the head and say, "Son, you know, don't you know what money is? You know, there's slugs in the middle of your money."
They used to say, "Don't take any more than nickels," and now, you know, people would get arrested for trying to pass a metal coin.
And the Federal Reserve notes, you know, I mean, you look at those, you know, those little words on them, you know, do some history on that and see what they used to say. I mean, they don't meet the legal definition of a note anymore, even.
Oh,
you know?
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a scam, brother. But how you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. Now, from your experience, right? Because you're talking about how they stage these battles overseas and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you weigh in on these people today who say stuff like Sandy Hook and these are false flag events and are staged shootings, the Aurora shooting and that kind of stuff?
You know, I don't know. There's definitely somebody that wants us to talk about it.
Right.
You know, I do not have the time or the money to personally tell you one way or the other. Okay, I mean, it's about a lot of stuff, you know. I mean, you know, we'll watch TV, you know, and some of you get heated about something, and you know, and I'll make a comment like, well, you know, all we really know is what we just saw right there, you know. And Daniel Hopsicker, who you're going to have on, made an interesting observation. He was one time in a place where they you can have yourself something served with some ice in it, and there was a TV up there, and this was a couple years back when there was a Danish guy who made a cartoon about Allah, and a bunch of people all got upset,
Right.
And all of a sudden, all across the whole Arab world, from Morocco on over, to the Pakistanis and beyond, there was people with Danish flags, in front of cameras.
They had those flags printed weeks in advance.
Right. And the guy says, okay, okay, do you have a Danish flag?
Right.
Where did these guys get Danish flags? And all of a sudden there's somebody there with a camera in front of them too,
Right.
Because, I've got some authors who tell some amazing tales, okay, some amazing stories, we get the media. Don Adams, God rest his soul, may he rest in peace. Okay, he was a retired FBI agent. Okay, he was a young agent. They played him just before the Kennedy assassination. Then he got put on the Kennedy detail in Dallas, his observations were different than the FBI, but even during the 50th anniversary, we could get Japanese TV and Norway TV to talk to him, but nobody in the mainstream media would talk to this retired FBI agent because he said something different than what they said. Okay, and get this, he put his story on the internet. It's out there. Don Adams, JFKCIA.com or something like that. Do a search for him. It's an amazing tale. But there was two stories in like Globe or one of those, one of the magazines, and they never interviewed him at all. They just took his information from online and spun it some way different, saying, making it sound like he said this when that's really not what he was saying at all. They are because, if you look at those supermarket mags, they're intel people there, and if they didn't know who they were working for at 9/11, one of them died from anthrax, right?
Right.
Okay, because
Stevens, Robert Stevens.
Yeah, because why did we have the anthrax happen right then at the same time? Okay.
And no one talks about the anthrax thing at all. Everyone's forgotten.
Yeah, and of course, it went to these senators that were making a bit of a to-do, if they were going to make any to-do, and it just.
Well, you know what else, man? Not to interrupt you, but they gave them all Cipro, this drug, and one of the side effects of Cipro is confusion.
Well, that's what they need a little bit more of there.
I think they got enough. Yeah.
And like I say, according to the Constitution, it's one for every 30,000 people, and wouldn't that be wonderful? Do you realize how many that would be? It'd be 10,000 there if they kept.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's right. And that would be nice, right? To get a little cross section.
Yeah, because just think of the coalitions that could be formed and other things. We have some honest government instead of this rigged affair that we've got. It's a rigged affair, and these guys have been rigging it for a long time, okay? And I talked about earlier about the slush funds, that the drug trade creates for this crowd, because, just one little fact, okay? Officially, there's 1 million to 1.2 million junkies in the United States, okay? Personally, I think there's a few more than that, okay? But at 1 million to 1.2 million, okay, that's a ton a day, okay? So realize that there's a lot of activity in this, and it goes through the banking system. It's
It goes into the prescription drugs as well, because if you get people on the Oxycontins and the Roxys and the Percocets and that stuff like that, you get addicted to that, like Rush Limbaugh did. You can't take 30, 40, 50, 60 pills at a time. You got to start shooting up or snorting. You got to start.
Right there, and when you go all the way back, you find out it's the same people
right.
running both concerns, you know, and it's. We live in interesting times, but again, I'm very, very hopeful.
Good. I was just going to say that because I appreciate that. You don't get discouraged, and that's good. I need that kind of encouragement.
Yeah.
Now, another curveball I wanted to throw you to. It's not too much of a curve, right? But now you're talking about how your dad told you how the whole, I guess the hippie movement was to get that generation addicted to opiates. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with Dave McGowan and book?
Yeah. No, I know Dave. I know Dave very well. And
me too.
I know his book, and we've got a book coming out, Drugs Used Against Us. Okay? And you know, it's a subject that's
it's John Potash.
Yeah,
it's my buddy too. Okay, great, yeah.
So you know, it's something that's very dear to my heart. I mean, I know Ken Kesey very well.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and you know, I started reading, you know, this conspiracy literature, you know, in the 70s, you know. So I was one of the very few people that knew Ken that would read this stuff. So I said, well, Ken, you know, I mean, I can read. It says here you're an FBI agent, and Jerry Garcia is an FBI agent, and you know, he would say, "Posh," you know. His big word to me was hijack. Okay. And then, you know, a bit of the understanding of it is a bit of a generational thing to a certain extent. I mean, I was right in the middle of the quote-unquote hippie movement, okay? I was class of 67, okay? And so I talked to a gentleman by the name of George Walker, okay? George Walker was on all the early bus trips of Kesey. He was even before they were a bus trip. They went there to talk to his publisher first, and they came back. And he was the guy that came up with the idea of the bus trip. And one thing that he noted to me, he says, "Well, yeah, you know, and at that time, one thing we were doing, we were using the LSD to combat the heroin." Okay, and you see. Heroin's a very easy drug to control. Okay, again, it's just, you know, here, kid, have it a couple times. Okay, right. Where LSD is harder to control. Okay, and these plans that they have to like opiate the boomer generation. Okay, they were, you know, really started to put in place at least 50 years out. Okay, the target date of 1950. Okay, well, the LSD, you know, didn't become invented until 38, okay, and supposedly they didn't find out what it was till 43. There's other talk about that, but who knows, okay? But I do think that it was used. It was used to disrupt and things, but then, you know, like I went to things like Vortex in Oregon, where every year there'd been a riot in the cities where the Veterans of Foreign War convention was, okay? And so it was going to be in Portland one year, and a bunch of us folk went to the governor and said, "Hey, if you give us a place to have a festival, a rock festival, we'll have a party and get all the kids out of town. There won't be a riot." And the governor went and thought about it over the weekend and came back and said, "Okay." And we did that. And I spent my time there mostly in a teepee talking to kids that somebody had come there and given LSD with strychnine in it. Okay?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because, you know, and that, you know, because, again, our generation wasn't supposed to cohere. Okay, we weren't supposed to, you know, become a unit. We were supposed to be a pieced-out, drugged-out generation as an antithesis to this war generation that they kept, you know, spiking every 20 years. The Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam War. Okay, so we were to be this antithesis and something they could hang their hat on and create the drug war, start the assaults on the Constitution, start, scaring the people and dividing us, because that's what they have to do, is they have to divide us. Washington, when somebody sent him a letter and said, hey, what about the Illuminati? And he said, well, they're here, their tenants are here, and their basic modus of operandi is to divorce us from our institutions. And they do. They want to divorce us from our family, our faith, and these little things that we can stand on together. Because if we don't have anything that we can stand together with, it's. I'm sure that guy who stood in front of the tank in China, said, hey, somebody's got to do it or something. I don't know, but it was frightening. Yeah. It was frightening, and more of us that stand up together, the better, because there's way more of us. And again, what they basically have right now is virtual control, and they're losing it because there are less and less people watching their news, okay? And there's more and more people getting their information from other ways. And there's more and more people that are learning, that, you've got to discern. There was a time when, you were skipping off to school and everything was just fine, and then, someday, you looked in your pocket and you Federal Reserve note and somebody told you that, well, that's not really, doesn't mean the government, so then it becomes a learning experience. And with every learning experience, you have to go down some blind alleys, and you have to learn some discernment. But there is the other thing the computer has done is taken stuff that was infinite and made it very finite. Okay, and we can understand, through different social sciences and even empirical sciences, quote unquote, who the bad guys are, what they're doing, and blah, 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 blah. And, we really...
Wait, Kris, before we get too far ahead, but as far back to LSD in the 60s and stuff like that, you would agree that Leary was an agent, right?
Larry was an agent. We've got, he's on tape, talking about it, and he was, they did try and influence a lot, and the dynamic that I really see is the evil scientist, creation has turned on him, okay? Because, again, our generation wasn't supposed to cohere. We were supposed to be just completely lost. We were supposed to be pieced and drugged out. But we did cohere. We cohered as hippies, okay? And out of the hippies came the personal computer and the Internet. And those are the tools that we're using to fight the corruption. And that's the dynamic, because, again, it's a...
Let me ask you a question, Kris, because I've heard you say that, and I've been listening to you all day long, right? Mm-hmm. And I've heard you say before, you say, well, and I was watching the History Channel did this series called The Hippies, and they concluded that the computer came out this hour, and that's because, Kris, the History Channel is run by Rupert Murdoch.
Well, Disney Channel, sure. Yeah, again, Rupert Murdoch doesn't, cross every dot and every...
Oh, yeah, but come on.
And stuff.
Yeah, but he's not...
It's just like, it's how, the Internet came about, too. It's because, the CEO sits up there and he might get some reports from the computer, but he sure as hell doesn't know how the dang thing works, okay? You go down there and you got some nerds and some hippies down there in the computer room, okay? And that's how come the Internet has its a particular structure, which makes it very hard to just, shut down, okay, in stuff. And so it's...
Well, then what's your opinion about this net neutrality thing that was just passed under our noses?
Making the Internet a public utility? I love it.
Oh, really? Okay.
It should be a public utility. It's not like, there's no governing bodies, part of the shtick of the whole Schmear is, oh, well, government's bad. Well, that's BS. We need government. We got to have ways of, there's quite a few of us scampering around here, we have to have ways of dealing with each other. And, government's not bad. Government is like a gun. A gun isn't bad. It's what somebody does with it,
Okay.
But and to get back to your question, yes, they had something to do with it, but they didn't have everything to do with it. There's nuances there, and it got out of their control, and it's still a bit out of their control.
What the internet or what are we talking about?
Just life in general.
Okay.
Yeah,
see, I Kris, I respect you. You're a lot older than me. Not a lot older than me, but you're my senior. And, I respect your work and all that stuff like that, but I don't have that kind of, optimism that you have.
Well, you're on the East Coast, right?
No, I'm from the East Coast, but I've lost my East Coast accent a long time ago. Now I live on the West Coast. I live in, Henderson, Nevada.
Well, Nevada's, you got some things, but the actual coast here, okay? The West Coast was we've got all the genes of all the people who kept going over the hills saying, "Hey, just leave us alone. Just leave."
No, yeah, I'm ready to go, man. I want to live by the beach.
Okay, and so it's it's been their biggest problem. I mean, you look at like the numbers when Ollie North was on the stand, and the numbers of support were like 74% on the East Coast and 20% on the West Coast, and there is a bit of a divide there. But again, this thing that is happening, is not just even happening in the United States. It's happening worldwide, and part of this has to do with the whole Earth catalog, or the whole Earth, being able to see pictures of the Earth from outer space, okay, makes a perception in a person's mind way beyond somebody that has never been able to see that, okay? So there's this book, like I say, Generations, A History of America's Future.
Yeah.
I just can't recommend that enough. And a book about history that I can't recommend enough is is Gold Warriors. It's called Gold Warriors by Sterling Seagrave. And Sterling Seagrave is the son of Thomas Seagrave, the Burma surgeon. All of his books were a Book of the Month Club until he published this one. He got so many death threats, he moved to Europe and published it himself. There's a version that came out in verso, and it opens your mind up to how the world really works behind the scenes and these slush funds and stuff, and it starts getting into finance and then arcane finance, and that's how they're controlling us through flim flam. I mean,
yeah.
It's.
Let me ask you a question real quick before I forget, because before you had mentioned the Bissell family. Mm-hmm. Bissell? Mm-hmm. Is that the same Bissell vacuum cleaner?
I don't know about vacuum cleaner. It is related to Richard Bissell, who was CIA. It is related to that family.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, you know what? JFK, Watergate, 9/11.
Yeah, all related.
Right. And we'll get into that, okay? But I want to, as a preamble to that, because I know what you're going to say, okay, the JFK and Watergate, it was all this occult ritual, each of them, and a mind control, trauma-based mind control kind of thing, right?
Yeah, Watergate more directed.
Right, and then I'll ask you my question after that. Did I lose you? Uh-oh, I think I did lose him. Oh, no, I lost my man, Kris Millegan, who I really like, Let's pull this guy back in here. Our guest, Kris Millegan, man, fascinating. Oh, I hope his battery didn't go dead. Incredibly fascinating guy. Kris got pissed off and hung up on me. Kris, you there? Kris? Oh, no. Let me see if I got him here. He seems to be on. We got a break coming up anyway. You know what? Hey, let's take the break early, Patty, and then I'll pull Kris in. Okay, we'll take our little break early. There we go. Thumbs up. If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic-grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocotami, that's Jocatami, at yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Her Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Gray at infinityhomeplans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's infinityhomeplans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, now you just Google New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters, and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on Lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book, where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them, too, as well, if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico, from these women. Okay, and we are back with the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Show's brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. Get a free audiobook. We are here with Kris Millegan, the publisher at TrineDay.com, the country's leading publisher of suppressed works. Go to TrineDay.com, and I promise you, if you listen to this show right now tonight, you haven't hung up on us yet, you haven't switched off, you will find a book that will be of interest to you. Kris is the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. But we've hardly talked about Skull and Bones at all. I'm going to have you back, Kris. Okay, I'm going to beg you to come back, okay, my friend? But what I wanted to ask you about, though, and I agree with you, is JFK, Watergate, 9/11. It was some kind of occult ritual sacrifice?
Well, yeah. The JFK is the killing of the king.
Right.
Okay. You kill the king, you take his power. And especially if you kill the king on a occult significant day, such as 11/22. You read books about classical numerology, and 11 and 22 are your highest numbers. There's no numbers between them. There's no numbers above them. And one of their meanings is mastery and supermastery. So if you kill the king, take his power, and flash occultly to the people that you're the master, well, then I guess we're the slaves. And this goes back to a bondage relationship that Hegel talked about, the philosopher who a bunch of the Skull and Bones people actually studied under. He died in a chair at the University of Berlin in 1831. And so the Watergate was a destruction of the presidency, continued destruction of the presidency, and also it had to do with drugs and endgame. It had to do with there's a lot of disparate drug runs that start at different times, and who's ever at the end of a drug run has a little fiefdom because he has money and he has intelligence. And the end game of one of the end games of Watergate was if Squeaky Jane Fromm or Sarah Moore would have been better shots, Nelson Rockefeller would have been president.
Right, and everyone forgets too. Before they can get rid of Nixon, they had to get rid of Agnew first. And who they put in there? Nelson Rockefeller. Right,
and they also changed the Succession Act. There was either a new amendment or they did something there that changed to how long a person that got in as a president from vice president could be there. And so Nelson could have been there for like 10 years. And that didn't happen. Okay, so you had David Rockefeller pick up Jimmy Who, okay, and put him out there because I mean there was really no way you were gonna even fake putting another Republican in there after a Republican just got impeached, right?
Right.
And so they put in Jimmy Who, and then they besmirch him. And they put in Ronnie with a very active vice president in Bush. And
one second, they got rid of Jimmy Carter. And how did they embarrass Jimmy Carter?
With the Iran hostage.
And who was in charge of that operation to rescue those hostages?
North?
No one knows that, brother. How come you know it and I know it, and you can't find it anywhere on the internet?
Oh, it's got to be out there, but yeah.
Look for it, man. You can have trouble finding it. It's really not out there. But you're damn right.
Ed McFarland involved with it too.
Right.
So and you had him come in, and one of the things he did was he then took these separate drug trades, and they started to put them more together, put them more under the aegis of the quote-unquote federal government, put them through NSA. A lot of it went through Little Rock and the Bondettis here and Jackson Stevens. And it's real interesting. You can just pull out the charts. You can see it. They started putting it into the stock market, 82, 83, and the other thing that they also started to do. And probably this was on their side bets. Who knows? But they started to buy up the healthcare and rest home industry. Okay, because see that's what I mean. Let's just think about it just a little bit. Okay, and it might come to us. Okay, I mean if you had two sugar companies and you don't. Okay, I mean that's another big long story. But if you had two sugar companies and you don't, but and one sugar company was bringing in cocaine and the other one wasn't, which one's going to be around?
Yeah.
Okay, you see with these slush funds. Okay, these guys are able to do control. I mean, and then there's a very good book called The Rich and the Super Rich that came out many, many years ago, and it's basically a study of the Great Crash. And one thing it talks about and shows is how, the quote-unquote powers that be will put the money out there. Okay, the little man will take the money. He's got an idea. He'll run with it, and he'll build himself a big company, and then pretty soon they'll take the money back, and they'll get that company for dimes and donuts, because one thing a lawyer friend of mine who I call a basement courthouse lawyer, go down in the basement and tell you who really owns things, who did some study, and who really owns things most of the time is accounts payable, okay, or accounts receivable, because they'll bust out their own company if they can get everybody else to put their money in, okay, because they'll buy it back for, pennies on the dollar, okay, so who really owns things is accounts receivable. And it's just a cutthroat mess out there. And again, so you've got the slush fund from drugs, you got a slush fund from the black gold, and what I mean there's the shiny stuff that's not registered, and then you've got the U.S. government. Okay, the U.S. government spits out, I don't know, it must be billions of dollars. I know it's millions of dollars a day. Okay, and these guys have it wired, so a lot of it goes in their pocket. Now, have you had on Catherine Austin Fitts?
No, I have not. No.
Oh, you need to check into Catherine Austin Fitts and get her on there. She was at one time, she was Secretary of HUD. Okay. She was under Jack Kemp, okay, and she got it down on this one program. So instead of losing, $1.70, she got it down to, we were maybe losing 70 cents on the dollar, and they fired her and they got it back up to $1.70 again, and the money goes to some places in Texas and Colorado, and so there's it's a huge slush fund. It's a huge slush fund. And then you get into arcane finance, and you've got another big slush fund where, they basically create money out of nothing and then use it to, to control us and tell us, oh, they're doing us good for us, And, if we study our founding fathers, okay, and we study what happened with colonial script, and we look at Franklin, and we understand these things. We can take back, okay, we can take back our country. We are doing it, one radio station by a time, one Ed Opperman at a time, okay, taking back the airwaves, getting people to listen to something other than, the Stooge Patrol out there, okay? And so, I've been dealing with this stuff way before the internet.
Right.
And let me tell you, it was much easier to suppress books. It was much easier to suppress discussion and before the internet. And that's one thing that we're having is we're starting to go beyond shrill debate, okay, and starting to have honest discussion. Because, see, if you go back and you look at it, Morgan said, okay, I'm going to create the left and the right, okay? And if you give the left honest things to carry, and if you give the right honest things to carry, and you have them fight each other, those honest things get debased, okay? And people are fighting about, baloney issues, okay? But we're starting to get beyond that shrill debate, and we're starting to have honest discussion, which leads to honest understanding, which leads to honest action. Okay, and so I'm very hopeful. I am very, very hopeful because
Well, Kris, let me ask you a question then, because now if JFK was an occult ritual sacrifice, and Watergate was a ritual to make us lose faith in the presidency, and 9/11 was a 3,000 person human sacrifice, blood sacrifice, in ultimate proportions. Shocking with the Twin Towers. The symbolism of the Twin Towers goes back, 1,000 years in literature.
Oh,
and stuff.
Yeah.
Right, so, dude, they have to have had this planned out so long ago, way before you or I were born.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't see us bending as much as we did. And I do you know of our book called The Most Dangerous Book in the World that we published of Kent Bain?
No, I don't know.
It's a very good book, goes into the ritual aspects of 9/11. And one thing we included in there was we included a fictional book of a ritual that could have happened at another time. And there's you can interrupt what is going on, and I really think that has been done and continues to happen. And you have a much more fluid situation where they're controlled, because again, it's virtual control. It is control through that TV. It is control, through the video games.
I agree with you. I don't let my kid play video games at all. She never did, and she's way more, I think, way ahead of the crowd by avoiding that stuff for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, when you look at the American Revolution, okay, the American Revolution happened with a small, really, percentage of the population. Most of the people were sitting on the couch, if you can say so. And again, if you look at the book Generations, A History of America's Future, okay, it goes back to the 12th century, and it shows how there's these 4 generations that interact with each other through history and propel us forward. And you get to certain points of time where you get so many revolutions of these 4 cycles that there is a paradigm shift. And this book came out. I came through it through American Demographics magazine in the early 1990s when I was working in marketing, and it's a fascinating book, and it shows that there is a paradigm shift that is basically, we're in the middle. We're in the middle of a paradigm shift. Okay, and it's up to us. To see, where that, because one thing they show in history is that when these paradigm shift happens, there's no matter who you are, okay? I mean, it's like, you're gone. I mean, it's like, at one point in time, if you oppose the Catholic Church, you could get burned, right?
You're right.
And things changed. And because when you look at, like the internet. I mean, the only thing we have from the historical record is like Gutenberg's press, okay? And Gutenberg's press brought about amazing changes, right? And the internet, I mean, I don't even think we've seen all the changes that the internet has brought yet, okay? And it's it continues on. And again, I'm trying to put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, I had an author call me the other day. He says, we might just win, and he was talking about, the drugs becoming legal, and take away this big cash cow that these people in the shadow use to control us. Because
but Kris, though, even if drugs became legal, the Walmarts would swoop in and make all that money.
Well, would they?
Yeah.
Would they, I mean, who's to say that, all of these Federal Reserve notes are legal tender when you look at them and they aren't the definition of a note, okay? I mean, we're basically playing with monopoly money at this time, okay? And the whole economic system is a false front. So why does it have to continue? And the world doesn't have to come to an end if we do something different as far as an economic system.
Right, okay. But practically, Kris, where we stand right now, just like 3 or 4 years ago, the Walton family had 30% of this country's wealth, and now it's up to 40%. And the tide is not turning the other way; it's turning more in their favor. They're taking more of the assets of this country every day without paying tax on it.
Right. Well, again, we only can continue with this fiction because everybody goes along with it.
Right.
Says it, and it takes some time, okay, for a person to understand. I mean, you have to remember. When you look, you used to think that the Federal Reserve meant it was part of the federal government.
Okay.
And unless you had some very some parents that told you something very early on. Okay. But and there's not a backsliding moment from that. I mean, history isn't a religion. Okay. And I'm just. Again, I'm just very hopeful because
I'm glad you're optimistic, and I'm glad you're hopeful, and I like to hear that.
I'm seeing change that's happened, and I continue to, in my position, one thing I do, I've got an 800 number, and I'll get calls from people that read a book, and I'll go through different times where different class of people and different things will seem to get it, understand it and whatnot. And the latest group has been the military, okay, and people out of the South, okay, and I really see a continued understanding of the corruption because it's hard for a person. I mean, I know it hasn't been easy for me, okay, to have to say, oh, well, what I learned in school was wrong, okay. And boy, I'm just getting, I'm getting fed this big, thing, and gosh, and I mean, and
well, let me ask you a question now. Okay, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Now, my kid's 14 years old. Okay, and kids today, they're very aware of the Illuminati and that the whole system's corrupt. But where's that getting us? And isn't that also a possibility that these kids are being inoculated with this information? And it's being used against us?
There is many things that are a two-edged sword.
Right.
Okay. And it depends on I guess who's going to wield the sword. And like I got into a discussion the other day with a gentleman on Facebook, and it basically boiled down to I was telling him he lived in a fool's paradise, and he told me I was on a fool's errand. And I said, I guess, well, it comes down to whether those backs that are bent over are going to stand up or not. Okay? And I believe, that, we're going to stand up. Because that's all that it really takes. I mean, it amazed me. I mean, how did I become a publisher of all of these great books? Okay? It wasn't because I got a lot of money or anything.
Right.
It was because I stood up. And then all of a sudden, I mean, people start saying, I mean, out of all of those books there's only one that I went out to somebody and said, hey, I see you're interested in, let's, can we put together a book on this?
Daniel Hopsicker, by the way, who was one of my first guests I've ever had on the show.
Well, no, that was Perfectibilis, the one about the Illuminati and Adam Weishaupt, because before that book, there was not an English-speaking biography of Adam Weishaupt and of, a story of the Illuminati. I mean, it just, I was amazed. There just wasn't anything. And there was books in German, there was books in French and stuff, but there was none in English. And so, I mean, there has been a concerted effort to, gee, there's a reason why they burned books, right?
Yeah.
And how did we get stuck in this B movie of Department of Homeland Security? I mean, goodness gracious me.
Yeah, but a lot of people fall for that stuff, man. All that stuff. Come on, Kris. You put on Fox News, and ISIS, we got to worry about ISIS, and then, and little girls in England are running to join ISIS because they want kitty litter and pictures of kitties and Nutella. It's the most insane crap you can imagine. And a lot of people are falling for that, man.
Well, that is true, and, I come back to Kesey's term of hijack. It'd be, again, I think people's eyes, are going to other places. And again, because, the literature that we produce, our books, some people I know, they think they're rude, okay, and whatnot, and it's topics that, got dismissed, okay. It's just a conspiracy theorist. Who wants to be a conspiracy theorist? Nobody likes you, blah, 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 But you see, this literature is not being dismissed. People are actually reading it. And once you read it, okay, things, whether you're left, right, center, or whatnot, start to strip away, and you become an American, okay? And, America's a great country. I mean, our Constitution didn't come about lightly, okay?
Okay, Kris, I want to ask you about that as well, too, okay? Now we're coming down to the last few minutes. 7 o'clock, we drop some stations. We can go on further. I do an after show for another hour. If you want to stay stay a little bit longer, or another hour if you would, we can take calls and stuff, too. But we'll be dropping at least 2 stations in the next 6 minutes, PSN and Talk Superstation. But then we'll still be all over. We'll be on Awake Radio and Sovereign the Land in Scotland and Ireland.
I'll take a few questions.
I love you, man. I knew you would. Because you like to talk, man. I like you.
No, I'm tired.
Well, let me ask you, man, dude, really, you put a lot of faith in the founding fathers, but these guys, they were Freemasons. You got, they remember
the Freemasons aren't bad.
No, but wait a second. Well, let me finish, because they were members of the Hellfire Club. You got, what's his name, Franklin there, got human bones underneath his house.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there. What they produced. What they produced was pretty amazing, and they'd gone through some tough times. Their families had gone through tough times. They understood, what it was to be free. Just kind of because of America was, there was an ocean and all that kind of stuff, and then their classical training, okay, and their understanding of civility, of rhetoric. Of these different things, of the dialectic, of dialogue, really went to create a, something that has been, it's been very sad in my lifetime to see it go from being, quote unquote, the beacon of the world to,
the fascism of the world.
Right, and again, it's it's Nazi. It's the same crew.
Yeah.
It's the same crew that supported Hitler. It's the same crew that built the Auschwitz as a industrial park. You know why Auschwitz was there?
No, why? The arms.
Well, because that's where the railroads met, and there were 2 different gauges of railroad. And it was an industrial park.
Okay, we're getting to the end of the show. We're here with Kris Millegan. He's a publisher at TrineDay.com. Fascinating books. You got to visit the website TrineDay.com. But just do me one favor in my life, okay? It's the country's leading publisher of suppressed works. The books on there are incredible. These are all the kind of people we have on our show. John Potash, we're buddies with him. Daniel Hopsicker. These are all our guys, okay? So check out, we can buy the books directly from him, support the publisher. I'm sure they make more money when they buy it from his website. He's the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. But we've hardly talked about Skull and Bones at all tonight. Now, we're taking calls and Skype messages. You can call in at 702-605-4894, 702-605-4894. And the Skype is ed.opperman. I got my usual callers all calling in. We're going to be dropping pretty soon. We're going to be dropping psnradio.com and talksuperstation.com, but we're still on this Scottish station, Scottish Sovereign of the Land. Really cool guys, awakeradio.us, awakeradio.uk, all these guys. All right, we're still on a bunch of stations. Let's put it that way, okay? And for the rest of you guys, though, we'll see you next week. We have a good old Dave McGowan coming on. We're going to be talking about the moon hoax next week. And during the week, I'm going to be interviewing this gentleman, Daniel. That's your cue.
Esculin.
How do you pronounce it?
Esculin.
Daniel Esculin about the Bilderbergers. And I'm going to be interviewing him as a recorded interview because he's all the way in Spain, so the time difference is crazy. And also, real quick, my buddy here, Patty Walking Turtle. Patty, I'm sorry, I don't have your notes, sweetie. No, Patty, I lost them. But Patty has a great show. It's on the Awake Network and her own Turtle Talk network as well, too. And she helps out produce our show. She's a real sweetheart, and she's a real asset to this show. Oh, here we go. Where the Wild Things Grow, Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time. Okay, and I guess we'll take at 4 p.m. Central Time. Turtle Talk, Monday, 4 p.m. Central Time. And look up Patty Walking Turtle. I'm sure if you just Google it, you'll find her and find her show. But I think we're dropping those stations now, and we're just we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be right back with my new best friend. I love this guy, man. Kris Millegan from TrineDay.com, and the author of Fleshing Out Skull and Bones, Investigations into America's Most Powerful Secret Society. If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. These 100% therapeutic grade oils help support the body's natural functions. You can click on her website posted on Essentially Tammy, that's T-A-M-I, to see the current deals and check out the benefits of oils such as frankincense, joy, valor, lemon, thieves, panaway, and many more. Email Jocko-Tammy, that's Jocatami, at yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. That's 352-239-8546. Hey, don't forget good old Amanda at Pacific West Bamboo. Pacific West Bamboo, 503-839-8126. You can reach her at demroots@oppermail.com. Pacific West Bamboo, your number one source for timber, construction, and craft-grade bamboo poles, plants, products, and more. They specialize in eco-friendly reclaimed wood products for the home and garden. They're located in Portland, Oregon, servicing the Northwest for over 10 years. They can be reached at 503-839-8126. That's 503-839-8126. Her Facebook page is Pacific West Bamboo. They can and do ship nationwide, and they're currently getting a new line of bamboo flooring, veneers, and laminates made from Guadawa bamboo, one of the world's strongest bamboos, grown and produced and manufactured in Central America using only economically and environmentally friendly practices and standards. Good old Mike Gray at InfinityHomePlans.com. Check out Infinity Home Plans and Design Services, your resource for 3D and 2D draftsman services. They offer a multitude of products, including stock home plans, 2D digital drawings, 3D models, renderings, and more. That's InfinityHomePlans.com. Hey, don't forget emailrevealer.com. That's my website, emailrevealer.com. And we offer all different kinds of services. Current place of employment locate. Let's say you're trying to locate where your ex-husband or your ex-wife is working so you can collect on child support. You contact us, we can locate their place of employment for you and help you collect on that child support. Let's say you think that your husband or your wife is cheating on you. Give us their email address and we can trace it back to online dating websites and dating services. So we have a multitude of services on emailrevealer.com. Hey, don't forget the New World Mexican Women. Okay, and you just Google New World Mexican Women. You can find their book where they first describe their love letters to their men and their sons and their uncles and their brothers who have traveled from South America to North America to work as migrant workers. But the women down in this town there in Guerrero, Mexico, they want their men to come back. So they've written these beautiful love letters, and they've put them all in this beautiful coffee table book. First, the letters are written in Spanish, handwritten. You can see pictures of the people writing the books. And then it comes on after that, and it's typewritten in English. And then also, too, the second half of the book is teaching you how to make authentic Mexican jewelry from these New World Mexican women. You can find their book on Lulu.com. It's only $19, or you can download the digital edition for free. That's New World Mexican Women, and it's a two-part book, where first part is the love letters, and the second part is the making the handmade jewelry, the authentic Mexican jewelry. But you can also contact them, too, as well, if you want to get a deal on wholesale jewelry from Mexico, from these women.